In Ukraine's resistance to the full-scale Russian invasion of February 2022, one of the most remarkable features of Ukraine's survival and strength during these more than 3 years of brutal onslaught has been the outpouring of volunteerism and activism by ordinary Ukrainians. And since so many men, as well as some women, are serving in Ukraine's military now, civilians, at least those who couldn't or didn't want to leave the country, had to quickly pivot from their daily lives of work in offices or factories or fields to help their communities survive. We've seen the heroics of first responders, the official kind as well as unofficial civilians just trying to help, in video and photographs. We've seen the images of destroyed schools, hospitals, apartment blocks, favorite cafes, theaters, and more. We know about 20% of Ukraine is under Russian occupation in the east and parts of the south, including the Crimean Peninsula since 2014. Many of the images, certainly not all, show Ukrainian women as victims of Russia's onslaught. But there's an entire swath of Ukrainian women who've stepped up into roles they might never have imagined for themselves before the war, not only those in military service, but those aiding local communities. How has the role of Ukraine's women changed during the war? What roles have they played in Ukraine's resistance and its resilience in the face of Russia's intensifying bombardments? This is the Just Security Podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Viola Ginger, Washington Senior Editor at Just Security. Joining me to discuss how Ukraine's women in frontline communities have stepped up to lead as volunteers, NGO leaders, even military administrators are Lauren Van Meter and Ella Lamak. Lauren is president and CEO of Women in International Security, WISE, and a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. She's a guest author at Just Security and a longtime Ukraine expert, and has most recently supported local women's organizations in Ukraine that are trying to help ordinary citizens who've been forced from their homes by the war. Ella is founder of Democracy Development Center, a Ukrainian nonprofit organization. She was a visiting Fulbright researcher at the Wilson Center for International Scholars in the United States from 2015 to 2016. She joins us today from Kyiv, where she and the center are based. We'll also be hearing today from a few of the women whom Ella and Lauren work with in excerpts from a discussion they had over Zoom recently. Lauren, it's great to have you back here, and Ella, it's wonderful to have you join us. Thank you both. Ella, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about what you did before the first Russian invasion in 2014, and then between 2014 and the full-scale invasion in February 2022. And then how did your work change after February 2022?
Hello, everybody. My work, my life is changed, absolutely. Before I represented women, I worked with local authorities, with youth, with children. We conducted debate camps. We conducted a lot of trainings about different type of democracy, etc., etc. When war started, everybody changed in Ukraine, especially our organization, especially me. We understood this training and education program is not priority today. Priority today is humanitarian response to help each other, especially to help people who is running from war, especially occupied territory, especially war zone, etc., etc. So everybody changed, and everybody started to think about how we can help together for different people.
Specifically, can you tell us a little bit about what you are doing now?
If we are talking about first year of the war, and I remember I called my different colleagues, not only friends or my member of families, just colleagues from different occupied territories, and asked what's happened with you, how I can help you. And I remember we check some transportation. We asked everybody, are you okay on the road? Do you need food? Do you need money for hotel, etc., etc.? Today, we have the same situation because Russia bombing every day our territory of Ukraine. We have war zone. So we are helping with evacuation is the first. The second, we are helping people who won't run from different territories. And also we help them to find accommodation, to find them some shelters. And we have contacts on different regions of Ukraine. Just example, with shelters on some Chernivtska Oblast, Lvivska Oblast, ask them, do you have a place for new IDPs people? So many different volunteers work we are doing. And also what is important for us, some people have a problem with mental health. So we created networks and to help each other, to say hello, good morning, good night, everything is okay. So we are doing here, it's our volunteers, our principal work for support each other.
Really amazing that you've been able to do that during this long period.
Actually, I have many friends in the USA who called me, who wrote me about, Ella, how are you today? What's happened? Good morning, good night. We are here, we are together, etc., etc. So we are happy that to have voice from the USA too every day.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Lauren, you wrote a powerful article for Just Security on the 1-year anniversary of the full-scale invasion in 2023 about the role and work of civil society in Ukraine and how it changed since 2014 and even more since 2022. Remind us briefly how you came to work with Ella and the other women, and how many are there now in the whole group that you have contact with on a regular basis?
Thanks, Viola. Ella and I have actually worked together since the start of the war in 2014. And our collaboration started on veterans issues. We were really concerned that Ukraine wasn't doing enough to support military veterans, and in particular, women veterans. Soldiers who face a special set of challenges. And through that work, I was introduced to the amazing network of women leaders that Ella has throughout Ukraine. Ella, I think you know women in every region, and I think in almost every village. And when the full-scale invasion started in 2022, I called Ella and we started raising funds for this amazing sort of local network that is national throughout Ukraine. And so let me talk a little bit about what I've seen, at least working with this amazing group of women over the last almost 4 years now. And I think one of the things that you have to realize is that in 2022, at the full-scale invasion, there was a period of shock and complete disruption of Ukrainian civil society in the initial days of Russia's attack. And some of the women in our network, like Valentina Kolovata, were on a Russian kill list because she was in the city administration or in her hometown of Myrna. And the Russians blockaded her city, and after 3 attempts, she escaped to Kherson. Another one of our women leaders, Tatiana, was in Donetsk. Donetsk had been occupied by Russia and its local proxies since 2014. But when the full-scale invasion occurred, she had to try to evacuate her elderly mother and mother-in-law and her nephew with a disability. And she lost relatives in that evacuation, either from the shock of evacuating or they were killed.
Let's hear what Tetiana, who asked us not to use her last name for security reasons, told you and Ella in a Zoom call you had recently to prepare for this conversation.
The changes were colossal. Thank you for this question, by the way. The changes were colossal, and we're like external, looking at what is happening. Destroyed schools, demolished building, and I mean destroyed to the ground in Donetsk region. cannot be repaired. A lot of vocational schools destroyed to the ground. Donetsk is industrial region, many vocational schools. It's very painful to see.
So after that initial disruption, then came really a most amazing civil society surge, and it has kept surging and surging. Within weeks, Ukrainian civil society had become a key part of the war effort, a role that it maintains even today. Ukrainian civil society is a little different from our NGOs in the West, which are more formal legal organizations. But in Ukraine, civil society is movement based. They see a gap, they rapidly fill it, they persist, they're tenacious, they stay on the problem, even as they identify and fill other gaps. So today, Women in Ella's civil society network support military units on the front. They take care of the internally displaced. They deliver critical humanitarian assistance. They equip bomb shelters. They even rebuild neighboring communities. They work at a pace that's exhausting, and they do this every day and every hour of that day.
That's really helpful, Lauren. Thank you. Ella, as of September 2024, about 68,000 women were serving in Ukraine's armed forces. That makes up about 8% as of last year of the nearly 900,000 strong force. About 5,000 of those women serve in combat zones. Women are not subject to conscription in Ukraine, but they can volunteer to serve in the military, and obviously many have. There has been repeated talk and even legislation in Ukraine to introduce the draft for women, but it has always been rejected, even though Ukraine has struggled to recruit enough people for the military. Ella, why do you think that idea is rejected? And what do you and the women you work with think about that? Is the debate about that pretty strong in Ukraine, or are most people in agreement that conscription for women is just not right for Ukraine right now?
Actually, Ukrainian society doesn't have debate about this topic. It's everybody understands that is normal for us to support women if they want to go to army. And today, many women have a contract with Ukrainian army. Many of them thinking about career. Many of them thinking about to defend the homeland, and they're patriotic, and so they in army today. But Ukrainian society is still stereotype about women's role in society. Many women don't want to think about this topic, but young generation, they support this idea. It's important for women too to understand that we should defend themselves. I think it is priority. If I can defend myself, so I can defend my country.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's interesting perspective. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the women you two are supporting on Ukraine's sort of civilian front lines. Of course, Ukraine has long had women in leadership, and there's a large number of women in Ukraine's parliament and at the top of civic activism at the national level, especially in anti-corruption. But looking at local communities in Ukraine, what kind of paid work, if any, and what kind of volunteer work are the women you're working with doing now? Just a few examples. And how does that compare with what they were doing before 2014 or before 2022?
Actually, our history knows both a lot of strong and smart women and at different position. It's a different situation if we are talking about local level. It's just example, liberated territories. Liberated territories today, just villages, rural areas, without resources, without water, without electricity. And who is represent these territories today? Women and older men, older women, sometimes children. And so before, women had the resources, women had supported from families, from colleagues. But today, women should believe themselves strong, themselves resources, should find these resources, should call, should go, should think everything. And sometimes rural areas doesn't have road, doesn't have electricity, and women should understand that everything should do themselves. Is this problem today? Its problem today is not resources. She should do everything herself with a lot of women. They represent the same target group. Just example, in one village in Chernigovskaya Oblast, they understood they don't have a road, nobody can help them, and they started to learn more about healthcare, how they can receive healthcare. Just example, to understand, to check blood, to check sugar, etc., etc. And they look at internet, different TikTok or different online resources, and to started to talk with different people in different regions online, and they explain how they can help each other.
Thank you, Ella. That's really, really interesting. Lauren, what strikes you about what some of these women are doing?
I just want to emphasize one of the important points that Ella has said. And the answer is that women in frontline communities essentially do everything that needs to be done. And I also want to talk really about the amazing adaptation that I've seen as we've been supporting these women and trying to fill their needs. When the war started, these women had to rapidly transition, as we said, from being government officials, women rights leaders, and turn really into what I'd call wartime response leaders in their communities. Early in the war, we helped leaders like Valentina, Tatiana, and Yulia Poshenko, our colleague in Hebron, support the internally displaced. Millions of Ukrainians were fleeing from Russia's invasion. What most people don't know is that hundreds of thousands of those displaced stayed in Ukraine, and it is community leaders like the ones we support that have helped them resettle. And Ukraine has been remarkably resilient in that. Then we helped our friends in the newly liberated territories like Valentina, now in the Kherson region. We helped them replace critical community life-saving equipment that the Russians had looted, hospital equipment, communications equipment, servers for emergency response, even firefighting equipment. They took the firefighting equipment. But I want to say that I think the very hardest phase is the one that we're actually in right now. Russia this summer has increased attacks on Ukraine civilians, missiles and drones launched in the thousands every night that kill families, attack hospitals and schools. Our support now is for bomb shelters. Children are living their lives in bomb shelters in Ukraine. They are forced to go to school in shelters. Whole communities shelter every night. So we try to buy educational toys, medical equipment, mattresses, and food. And the war is now really beginning to take its toll on these communities and their leaders. Ukraine will never give up their blistering pace. When we talk to our women leaders, they are extremely determined, and they still work that 24/7. But they're now getting very sick. And some of our women leaders have had heart attacks, serious operations, more reporting having incidents of cancer, even among young women. So yes, Ukrainian communities are adapting, but at a significant toll for their health and resilience.
Yeah, I want to say thank you very much, Lauren, about this point. Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe today. It's what changed. We started to build kindergarten in school in basement, in bomb shelters. The first. The second, we don't have a safe territory. Many mines in land, many drones around us. and many soldiers, many combatants from Russia look at us, and they can kill us every day, especially near war zones, especially liberated territories.
That's a really important point, the point that both of you are making about the conditions and how difficult they have been and how much more difficult they are even right now. Speaking of displacement, I had the opportunity to speak with Valentina Holovata, the military administrator in the South, who's in your network in 2023. And she told me that after Ukrainian forces took back the right bank of the Kherson region, the right bank of the Dnieper River, that part of Kherson region from Russian occupation, the area she was responsible for expanded to include several villages on the banks of the Dnieper River, where more than 3,000 people lived. And those included 30 babies, 50 bedridden disabled people, many elderly people. The villages were still under constant shelling every day, and they had no light, no heat, no water supply. She and others were organizing and delivering humanitarian aid to village residents, which was especially difficult because roads and bridges had been destroyed. It was incredible to contemplate, really. Let's hear what Valentina told you two recently in a Zoom call recorded in preparation for this discussion. She's talking about the early days after the full-scale invasion in the area of Skadovsk near Crimea.
Закінчилися продукти в супермаркетах, закінчилась на хлібзаводі мука для хліба. І я працювала в районній владі, тому ми сформували команду для того, щоб люди вижили без продуктів харчування, і звернулися до місцевих сільських мешканців, фермерів, в яких залишилися запаси. І всіма способами ми до міста переправляли ці продукти, зерно, мололи муку, і пекли хліб, і привозили молоко, продукти харчування сільські, і їх просто роздавали на вулицях. Були такі пункти видачі біля багатоповерхівок, в першу чергу сім'ям з дітьми, з маленькими дітьми і літнім людям. Це те, що найбільше закарбувалося. Також, оскільки російські війська не очікували такого спротиву на Херсонщині, а вважали, що ми їх будемо зустрічати із квітами, із хлібом, сіллю, ми виходили на мітинги щоденно і демонстрували, що Херсонщина – це Україна, і чинили такий спротив, допоки не розстріляли.
I also, at this point, should say that, Lauren, you have been fundraising extensively within your network here in the United States, and really appreciate the work that you've been doing on that. And I know the women you're working with have appreciated that, and there's been so much that you have managed to provide to fill some of those humanitarian gaps. I would ask both of you, what about the role of civilian men in these communities? How has that changed during the war? And are there any tensions related to how people's roles and relations have changed from the traditional understanding of gender roles in Ukraine? Ella, do you want to start on that?
Yes, of course. Actually, we don't have healthy men now. You won't see healthy men today. Most of them are men with disability, older men. And we have men sometime in school, you can see, sometime in government, but actually many men with disabilities, with different type of disabilities. Our society didn't ready to understand that we should change our infrastructure, our transportation. Everything we should change because men and women as a veterans, they cannot normally walk around the city on the street. They cannot go to supermarket or someplace. It is problem today. And women should do everything. It is difficult for them. Many women started to have trainings about what is safe skills, defense skills. It's new for them. I talked with different women in Khersonsk and Mykolaiv Oblast. They thought before they thought that this defense and safe skills only for men. But today they understood that they should have this training and they goes. Everybody understands that women and men should do everything for life, for health. And women understood that they should have a leader position. And they add many trainings, not only about women leadership. And they understood that they should change a program for training. And so before, they didn't have training, but today many of women participates in new training about safe and defense.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Lauren, is there anything else you'd like to add on that point?
I think, Viola, I'd just like to add two very brief points about what the war has done to both men and women in Ukraine. The first is that Ella is right. I mean, women now, with men on the front lines, men disabled, are having to assume roles that in Ukraine might be considered, roles for men. And so, for example, in Kherson, women are having to pull in the harvest in Kherson. It's an agricultural area and known for its watermelons. And women are there on the farms pulling in the harvest, and they are exposed to Russian snipers who snipe at them from the opposite bank of the river. So moving women into these quote unquote civilian roles is not without profound dangers in Ukraine. And I also want to briefly talk about the role of young men. This particular generation of young men, there's not a lot of them because they were born in the 90s when Ukraine was in a severe economic crisis. Not many families had children. So this age cohort is very precious within Ukraine, and yet they are facing being conscripted and sent to the front. And what this does to a whole new generation of Ukrainians has had them put dreams on hold. It's sacrificing Ukraine's ability in the future to reconstruct and to be resilient after the war. And so we're sort of at a very, very pivotal moment when it comes to conscription and the new generation.
That's such an important point about the long-term effects of all of this, especially on Ukraine's ability to recover after the war. Let's hear what Yulia Porhenko told you about the Veterans Hub that she and others have set up in the region where she's working.
But the most important project I can tell you about lately, it was creation of veteran space. This created an opportunity to give a space not just for a specialist who supports veterans, but also a hub for veterans to meet with each other. When they come from the war, many of them, because of their health, they cannot walk. But we created mobile teams. We visit their families at home. In villages, we support them. We also convened around the families of those who died in service, the soldiers who fell defending us. It's a great pain because in our community, more and more families lose their members as soldiers. So more and more families emerge who need our support.
Lauren, is there anything else you want to add about what the United States and Europe can do right now to support the war effort in Ukraine?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do for the United States and Europe is to not forget, to continue to advocate for assistance, to demand that our leaders continue to make Ukraine a priority of our own national security. This means citizens continuing to support drone buying efforts, calling politicians when an important piece of legislation on Ukraine is being considered in their legislatures, speaking out in op-ed pieces. Many think that President Trump's recent turnaround, which has been terrific on support for Ukraine, the renewal of arms shipments, is because of bipartisan support for Ukraine in the United States. In a highly polarized America, it is an issue that has united us, and citizens' political activism this summer on behalf of Ukraine has worked. And so the message is to continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then just one final question for both of you. What are your colleagues, these women you're working with on the front lines, and Ella, you yourself being in Kyiv, are increasingly on a front line because Kyiv itself is being bombarded intensively with drones, missiles from Russia. What do you want to say, and what do these women want to tell the world about what a just peace would look like for their communities?
Actually, I have many trips around Ukraine. I understand if I want to know everything about what is a humanitarian response, I should live together with women in shelters, in villages, in bomb shelters. So many of people, especially women from rural areas, want to have a normal life or go to school, not to bombers, to shelters. Or it's many of women, especially children, want to have normal school when they have normal teachers and normal lessons in school, not online. Today, everything is online. It's difficult for them. Children lost childhood. It is important. The youth lost their youth time. Women lost themselves time for communication, for leadership, for everything.
At the same time, some women have found strength and capacity they didn't know they had. Valentina talked to you about that.
Мене змінила сильно, як і кожну жінку України.
I was changed
Я точно скажу,
in a big way, just like every woman in Ukraine, I think. I will tell you that before the war, I always was taking a secondary position. I always thought that I am too lacking, I lack some knowledge, some skills to be the real leader, the full-fledged leader. But going through these ordeals in the occupation, exit, all these experiences, I understood I need to lead. I took this responsibility myself. I now self-confidence of 200%. I know, I understand that my work, my activities is something many people rely on, and I have to do it. And I do it with great understanding of my responsibility.
Lauren, what are you hearing about what these women are saying about a just peace and what that would look like for their communities?
Yeah, this was probably one of the most interesting conversations that we had with our friends on the front line. And I agree with Ella, absolutely. I think Ukrainians see a just peace in some ways in very simple terms. A return to normal life, security, a return of their territories. Their demands are very clear and straightforward. There was, however, one very, very interesting point that our colleague Valentina Halabata in Kherson mentioned with us. And she equated a just peace with a just war. And are there ethical there are ethical principles around war, the protection of civilians, the right to self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. And yet we have denied Ukraine many times the ability to exercise justice through a war that is prosecuted by these ethical principles. And so Valentina asks, and I think it's a profound question for all of us, how can we discuss a just peace when we in the West have watched Ukrainian civilians die, hospitals and schools be attacked? Can victims of terrorism ever feel that they will achieve justice when the acts of terrorism were never prevented and when they could have been prevented?
Such important points. Thank you both so much for these insights and perspectives that we don't hear as much from Ukraine at war. I really appreciate your time and your wise words for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for you and your help, your voice, and your support us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ella. This episode was hosted by me, Viola Ginger, and produced by Isaac Rubenstein and Maya Neer. Special thanks to Lauren Van Meter and Ella Lamak, and to Valentina Holovata, Yulia Poroshenko, and Tetiana from Ukraine. You can find more analysis of Russia's war on Ukraine on Just Security's website. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.